All right, here we are.
All right, it's live. We're
Yeah,
out there on the
we're out there.
interweb. Cool. Well, hey, Alan, how are you?
I'm honored to be here, my friend. Glad to be here.
Yeah, me too. Me too. How's your morning going so far?
It's going well. I was reflecting. I was up super early this morning because I had a call strategy session with a new client that I signed on this morning with our program, and it's fun. It's an interesting thing. It took me back to years ago. I did a talk for a chiropractic organization in Australia, and I think it was at nighttime for them. They had like a teleclass series, and so it was at nighttime for them, but it was 3:30 in the morning for me. So I remember sitting in my apartment in the west end of Vancouver, in my underwear and a t-shirt, like hair all disheveled, and this is back before we had Zoom. So I
Right.
was on a phone, so I had like a headset on, and on my cell phone. Actually, no, I wasn't on a headset. I just had my phone on speaker mode, and so I like laid my phone on the carpet, and I was just doing this talk. I had all my notes in front of me, and I was just doing this talk to a bunch of people in the middle of the night. And I just remember thinking like, oh, like we just do what's necessary. I just love this opportunity, and I had this opportunity this morning. My call was at 5 a.m. for us. And I get on the call with the woman, and she's like, "Oh my gosh, why? How come you're on a Zoom call with me at 5 a.m.?" I'm like, "We do what we got to do.
Well, and
It's fun."
it's cool that you've had the training for this. In terms of working at those odd hours, in terms of being on sales, and then where was she based?
She's in Michigan.
Michigan. Okay, so a little bit ahead. But yeah,
Yeah,
I guess for some people, a 5 a.m. sales call would seem a little unusual if, perhaps if you're used to working 9 to 5 or something like that.
yeah, very true.
I
But
think it's
us,
something that,
we're not like most people.
well, I think that's you and I talked about. One thing we wanted to talk about is just as dads who have, full lives. We have our wives, which we love and support. We have our kids, multiple kids that we each have new businesses that we're starting that we love and adore and want to support. And then, of course, we've got ourselves and our health and our well-being that we love ourselves and want to support ourselves. And you got friends and you got family and all these other things. So, that can be a lot.
Yeah, absolutely. It can definitely be a lot. But I always go back to this idea. This is the life we chose.
We, one of these weeks. Oh, yes, this is it is. I hope this is not laggy out there. It's a little bit on my end, so I apologize. I might be a little delayed, but you're right. This is the life we chose, and I think that's an empowering place to come from, right? Where it's a choice. I think that it's hard, and I've been in that place before. It's hard when life can feel full and you feel like you don't have a choice. It's like, oh, I have to do these things. I have to take the kids to school. I have to take them to their sports. I have to, work out. I mean, from that place, I feel like it feels a lot harder. What do you think?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and thinking about everything as a choice. That it's something that life is not happening to me, but it's happening for me. And all of these things, whether it be having a kid, starting a business, even whether it's just having a job, like we get to choose ultimately. Like we feel so often, I feel if I get stuck in a rut or if I feel stressed, like there's just life is happening to me and that I don't have any dominion over what happens. But it's really, I think there's a lot of people I've been seeing a lot of people talk about, like Jerry Seinfeld, who's been on the road talking about his new movie, Ryan Holiday, who has a new book out on Stoicism. Like there's a lot of people talking about this idea of Stoicism, and the Stoic philosophies are becoming more and more popular. And I think there's a good reason. And I think Ryan Holiday, who wrote a bunch of books on it, his new book came out, and he talks about like what is this stoicism, like what is this stoic philosophy? And he says it really just boils down to the idea that we don't control life, we don't control what happens to us, but we control how we react, we control how we respond. And the more we understand about that, the more that we're able to take control of our own feelings, our own emotions, our own actions, then the better life is. And I think that's easier said than done. But at the end of the day, I mean, that's really it. Life happens, and we may not be in control. Things may not necessarily be our fault, but it's always our responsibility.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I like his work. I follow him. I think I have one of his books. Yeah, and I've gone down that rabbit hole a bit around Stoicism. I think there's a lot of commonality with like Buddhism as well. And yeah, I think that's a very empowering place to be. Is, you know, I know that if I'm trying to change the outside world, if I'm trying to change how things are happening or how people are, or how others are responding or what others are saying or what others are doing, I mean, that's gonna be really difficult. That's gonna be really stressful for me, right? Because at the end of the day, I can't. You're right. I can't control anything out there. Ultimately, what I do have full control over is myself, is my thoughts, my emotions, how I respond to things and the tools, right? Like I feel like I still get triggered. That's a really, yeah, it's a really empowering place to live. And even just, language, right? Like we were just saying, that simple switch from I have to I get to can be extraordinarily powerful. Just
Mm-hmm.
there was I can't remember the name of the talk I went to, but he called them dirty words. And so he had a list of, and it wasn't a long list of words that just making that simple switch in language can create a whole new paradigm, a whole new reality.
Yeah. Let me ask you this: how do you, so like when life is happening and you got stuff happening with your wife, you got stuff, your kids are all like they've got 5,000 different schedules, and your clients, and how so when you get caught in that, like when you get stuck in a moment, like how do you get yourself out of it? Like how do you get yourself back to the perspective of, okay, no, this is happening for me, this is not happening to me, I have a choice in this.
So yeah, it's a great question, and I feel like it's a constantly evolving practice. And depending on the significance of the situation, sometimes it's as simple as taking a breath, right? Like coming on here today, I could think about all the things that are on my schedule for today, or like I did before, just before we came on, I just took a simple breath. I chose to be present here. There's nothing else I need to do. There's nowhere else I need to be. I can just choose to be present right now with you and whoever else hopefully is joining us here today. I can be present with myself. I can just take that simple breath just to pause and allow myself to just be, and be here in the now. I think that's been a really important practice for me. If it requires more than that, if I do that, I'm like, okay, well, it still feels like a lot. Sometimes there is going to be something significant that comes up. A big thing for me is then getting myself outside in nature. Like I'll go for a walk or a hike. I posted some stuff recently. I do these daily videos, right? Like there's been some hard days. So, there's challenges in life. Like we didn't sign up for the simple, easy path. And what's really helpful sometimes is, yeah, go for a walk, go in the forest, go, wherever that is for you. I have a few places that just have a lot of great memories. I feel like they give me a lot of joy. They'll fill my cup back up if my cup starts to feel a little low. Right near us here, the Stearman Beach, the Lighthouse Park, Cypress Falls Forest. There's lots of places like that. Exercise is a great thing, right? If I'm feeling like, okay, I gotta process some stuff, I'll go for a run. That's something I love doing. Is I'll just go for me, there's a quick out and back that's about 10K that I'll do at zone 2, so it's super easy. And that I'll come back usually feeling amazing and have processed a lot of those thoughts. Feel a lot more in control of things. I've been able to be with my thoughts and get exercise, get the blood flowing, get oxygen going. All of these things I feel like are super helpful when stuff's going on that I just need a little bit of internal help working on. And then the last one is, this is something that I've been working on too with one of my coaches, Kevin, is to, if you're in it, if you've got some emotional reaction going on to something, is to a very simple 3-step process to just get yourself a little bit out of it and shorten the time frame that you were in it, would be to notice it. Oh, I notice that I'm triggered, I'm angry, I'm upset, I'm sad. To notice it, to name it. So, putting a name to that emotion, and then to just accept it. Like, for right now, this is here. I can just be with it. And what's amazing is, and then there's another part to it to then start to actually process and transcend it. But just in that very short process, if you can just notice it, name it, and just kind of love and accept it, you can very quickly shorten the duration that you might be in something. So that's a long answer to your question. What do you think?
That's great. That's fantastic. And so, what do you mean? Tell me more about naming it.
So it is a powerful thing for kids too. If they can name, even if, to develop that language around emotion is super helpful, right? In my daughter's class in primary school, they have a station where they take colored sticks and they go and put the colored stick, which is associated with an emotion, in these jars. So they can let the teacher in the class know, like, I'm feeling a little off today. I'm feeling a little frustrated. I'm feeling a little bit sad. I'm feeling, if that emotional language is not something I grew up with. I'm so happy that kids are growing up with that, at least, in my world here. And so if you
Yeah.
can notice, like, okay, I'm in something right now, like I'm having an experience myself. Like I'm triggered, I'm elevated, I'm, you know, heated, whatever it feels like. And if I can name it, if I can start to have a language around what the emotion actually is, then I have a better chance. And I don't remember the body of work around this, but you can look it up in terms of just helping kids and yourself name that emotion can do wonders for, starting to get out of it, starting to shorten the duration that we're in it, starting to take control of our own environment and our own experience and not projecting it onto people.
That's really cool. I like that idea because I think there's so much of, especially what I think with our kids, but also for ourselves. I think we often think because we're adults and we have these brains of knowledge that, we have it all together. Like we're not like kids, but really like we're just big kids. And when we start to feel emotion, I think about like my own kids, when they start to feel like big emotions and they start to have meltdowns and things like that, there's so much of like they just are probably scared because they don't know what it is that they're feeling. And the same with adults. Like we've been so taught, trained, and educated to not only repress emotion, repress feeling, and not show outward emotion, not show, not be vulnerable with others and all of that. And that can lead to just a lot of confusion about, well, what actually am I feeling? And I think that's part of it. I guess think about making any change. The first step is really becoming aware of where I am, aware of where I want to go. And so, so I think that naming piece, that's so powerful. That's really cool. And because I think that's half the step, or that's half the journey. Is this is what it is. It's not just this uncomfort, this stress or this pain that I feel inside. It's this. Okay, I can deal with that. But if you don't know what it is, right, then you know where you're going.
Yeah, it wasn't that G.I. Joe. Half the battle was. No, you remember the cartoon as a kid?
I remember watching it. I don't remember much about it.
Oh, there was like a slogan. I think it was "Knowing was half the battle" or something like that. Someone will know better than me, but there was a slogan around that, which you just reminded me of. And yeah, I mean, totally right. We can be kids at times. Like it comes down to like how much teaching did we get? How much learning did we get? How much education do we have as adults around emotions, around emotional intelligence? Right? Like that wasn't taught. It wasn't taught in my school. It wasn't taught to me, by my parents. My parents are amazing, but that wasn't something that I learned. So where do you get that? Unfortunately today, I think there's a lot more awareness of this. At least I've seen this, with my kids, and I teach them, and I'm learning myself a lot about this because I think it's super important. I do think, and I've got a lot of experience of this lately, is expression of emotion, like big expression, like even joy and excitement and happiness. And then, frustration and, disagreement and frustration. Not everyone's comfortable with big emotions either.
No, yeah, not only are they not comfortable with them, but when we repress them for so much, for so long, they end up coming out in really unproductive, often destructive ways, not only to ourselves, but to others in relationship with us. And I think about, we were talking just before we got on air about some videos that you'd probably seen and I had been seeing. They've just been popping up on my feed a lot of just these. No one's talking on the video. There's just kind of some background music, and there's these guys doing things. Like there's a guy just walking on a treadmill with holding his kid, or there was a guy just shoveling some stuff in his yard, or he was just like sitting at the kitchen counter just drinking a cup of coffee. Just all these are all different videos, different guys, but the captions on the video was, this is something to the effect of like, this is just me, trying to keep my shit together, trying to raise some kids, trying to provide for my family, trying to make sure everyone is well fed, and not lose my mind. And so there's so much of what we go through in our day that it goes like underneath the surface. Like I'm always amazed when I see people in the office. I see a bunch of clients in my chiropractic practice, and so often the question that we often ask ourselves or ask each other when we meet is, "Hey, how you doing?" And the answer we always get is, "Oh, good, fine," whatever it is.
Stock answer.
But there's a stock answer, but it's like, is that really what's happening? Because I'll get into it with some people, and really like, oh no, like they're having the worst day of their life. And I've had times like that too, where people come into the office, how you doing? And inside, I feel broken. I feel, and in those moments, I remember one of my mentors, Agno Brugnia, years ago, talked about like meeting that moment and not just putting it away and not just trying to repress it and going, oh, everything's good, everything's fine. But just to say, and this is something I'll say often when I'm in a moment like that, is to say, right now, I'm focused solely on making sure that you get the best experience and the best service. I want you to be well taken care of. And I'm going to focus on that right now. And when we don't have the ability to like really process all the things, I think one thing for me that's always been really helpful is, and we talked a little bit about this last week, is just being of service, being a contribution. And so often just being a contribution in the moment allows for the stress to dissolve. It allows me to just remove myself one step away from the feelings that I'm having. And so often it's like, oh, well, maybe I wasn't so bad. Or maybe my whole world is not crumbling right now.
Right.
There's a bigger picture. And yeah.
Well, there's a lot in that comes up for me as you share all that. There's this notion of thinking we need to always be positive, like that whole positive psychology thing, and thinking that that's the way we're supposed to be all the time. I think that's a disservice to people. I think it's thinking that we're alone, like, oh my God, I'm the only one that's got all this stuff going on. And I know how helpful it's been for both of us to have other groups of men to be able to support and realize that, oh, I'm not the only one that feels like this. I'm not the only one that has off days. I'm not the only one that goes through this. A lot of other guys have the same feelings, the same thoughts, the same experiences. And I can only speak, and I think we can only speak as men, as dads. I don't know what it's like to be a mom as a woman. So we're just saying this as guys, as dads. And I just think, I forgot my third point, but I think those two around not having to think that we need to be positive all the time. Like it's okay to have off days. It's okay to tell people like, yeah, like I'm going through a tough time right now. I think it's really important to show our kids that like we're not up all the time. Dad has off days. Like the reason, I mean, that's been a really big thing for me, especially lately, is like, hey, I got a lot going on right now. I'm starting a new business. I've got your guys' schedules, which I love supporting and love being a part of. It's just a lot. So, and so I just, hey, I might be a little bit edgy right now. And so at least they understand, like, okay, this makes sense. I can understand why Dad's a little different right now. It's hard for them if they see me being off, but I'm keep telling them, oh, like you're saying, I'm fine. It's all good. That can be confusing, I think, because they're very clever, right? They pick up on this stuff.
Yeah, there's this great video. Maybe I'll link it below after we're done. There's a woman or this little girl had written a letter to her dad, and the video is of them. I guess it kind of flashes back and forth to her writing this letter. Like she's probably 5 or 6, 7 years old, maybe, and you see her and her dad. Walking like him walking her to school and him like getting ready for the day, and she's talking about in this letter that like what all the stuff that her dad does for her and all the stuff that they do together and all this stuff that he does and all these things that he is, and the dad is reading this letter, and there's flashbacks of them doing this, and it looks like he's a single dad taking care of her, and then halfway through she says, "But my dad's a liar," and he kind of stops in his track, and she continues, yeah, he lies about being okay all the time. And you see the backstory of this guy. Like, do you remember the story or the movie The Pursuit of Happiness? I guess it's based on a book too. It's with Will Smith, and he with his son Jaden, like his actual son Jaden Smith was in the movie with him.
Okay, yeah.
Do you remember that movie?
Was he like homeless or like really poor and was trying to make it work as a single dad? And
Yeah, so he's selling these X-ray or this kind of some sort of diagnostic technology for hospitals, and he's down on his luck. His wife leaves him. He's got his son. They get kicked out of their place. Like he's the lowest of the low, and he's trying to learn how to be. I think it was like a stockbroker or something like that. But yeah, it's like the lowest of the low. But he's always trying to not protect his son from it, but like always like, no, like we're doing this, everything's going to be okay. Things are hard, but it's going to be fine. And you see this dad in this little video, like just grinding. Like, so when he drops her off at school, he's wearing this suit and he's like playing like he's got it all together. But then right after you see him running to like these little odd jobs that he's doing. You see him in the middle of the night, just like exhausted. You see him just demoralized, but working his ass off to provide his daughter with this great life. And so she points out that, yeah, like he's a liar because he says that he's okay when he's not. He says that all of these things, but you see just the resilience that this guy has in getting through. And I think I get caught so often in this lie that, yeah, everything needs to look like it's okay, or I need to have it all together, and I need to show my kids and really protect my kids from negativity. And really, it's not about that. Like you're saying, like it's really teaching our kids by modeling it about how to, like, I think that's so brilliant what you said about just being able to name what we're feeling. It just takes the weight of it off.
Right.
Is like my kid will have a meltdown and just get all this emotion out, not necessarily understand what it is, or you can't really name it in the moment, but all of a sudden, as soon as it's out, then they're like it never happened.
Right.
This major meltdown, and then the next second it's like everything's fine again.
Which is so great. It's actually so healthy, right?
So healthy, yeah. And we don't, we feel like we've somehow evolved out of that, but we haven't. But so we have different tools. Oh, absolutely still there. And so often I feel the weight of responsibility. I call it the trifecta of insanity, is having a business, a marriage, and kids. It's completely insane. And yet it's the very thing that I want the most. Right. And so just having tools to not feel okay in the moment, but getting through. And you said something, you texted me something, I don't know if it was yesterday or the day before. You said some stuff about some stress you were feeling, but in the moment, I'm okay. Right. And it's like, it's really cool. It's like, yeah, like there's stuff happening, but I'm okay. Like we're going to get through this.
Can we be the eye of the storm, like to be that grounding, to be that presence, to be that unconditional love, Even when things do get a little chaotic. And if we're not, that's okay too. I think that's super important for kids to learn that we don't have it all figured out. Like I'll tell them, like I don't know how to I don't know how to do this. I haven't done this before. I don't have it all figured out. And I think it's a dance, right? You don't want to scare them that like, oh my God, the pilot of the ship doesn't know how to fly. Like generally speaking, I got most things figured out, right? Like we've got a great life. It's just that if something new or I'm going through something, I think it's important for them to just understand like, hey, dad's in the middle of something right now. This is temporary. This isn't who he normally is. He'll figure this out. He has before. And
Hmm.
that's great for them to see because they're like, okay, because when something tough comes up for them, if their only model is, wow, my parents always figured it out. They told me that they're always great. And yet I'm experiencing something really hard and I don't feel like that, then what do they think? That's really
Yeah.
confusing for them.
Yeah. Yeah. One thing that I found really helpful over the last little while, and now I find my older daughter actually asking me about it now, is when she would do something that was like she shouldn't have done, or she's feeling frustrated with something, or she wants to quit, or have any sort of negative emotion. I'll relate back to when I was a kid, and I'll tell her, "Yeah, I used to feel. I remember when I was your age, I felt like that, or I remember making that mistake. I've done that." And so to really show our children, like, yeah, like we come to these conclusions, we come to these ideas, that we come to this, we set these boundaries because we've actually learned this, not because it's just some arbitrary thing. And to know that, and so my daughter will now be like, "Hey, Papa, did you ever feel like this when you were a kid, or did you ever do that when you were a
Right.
kid?" And and say, yeah, yeah, absolutely. And just being open and vulnerable about, yeah, all these things that I've really messed up. I've messed up a lot, and it's okay.
Right. Well, and super helpful for them to also, like we were talking about before, to realize that they're not alone, right, with these feelings, with these thoughts, right? That you've experienced this before in some way, in some different way, right? And that others have too, right? I think I did some mentoring with the Boys Club Network in the East End Boys Club, and there was one of the speakers, one of the mentors, and he said the number one thing, well, at least one of the top things you can do for people that are having a really hard time is to just validate. Well, I think that's for the same for everyone. Is just to validate their experience, validate their feelings. Like they're not wrong, right? Because that's their experience. You can't make that wrong because otherwise, if you make that wrong, then they're sitting there going, "Well, I feel this way, but you're telling me I shouldn't." Like, "Oh, don't
Hmm.
cry. It's just not a big deal." Or if somehow even it seems really simple, right? Like, "Oh, you should be really happy about this. You should be great." Like if we impose our bias and our opinions on someone and yet they don't feel the same way, that can create a lot of confusion because they're going and sitting there like, well, no, but I feel like this, but you're telling me I should feel something different. Now what am I supposed to do? Because especially if it's us as parents or someone that they respect and, have some, what do you want to call it? I don't like the word authority, but have some influence in their life.
Hmm.
I think it's really important for us to really be able to honor anyone and honor, especially our kids, their personal experience and to understand it, to help them understand it, like we're talking about, to have language around it, to help validate it, and then help them move through it, right? Like, okay, big
Hmm.
tantrum, big emotions. That's not the time to teach. That's the time to help them understand how to regulate that. In the beginning, there's a lot of work on this, right, around co-regulation, but helping show them how to regulate that emotion, right? If we're not able to ourselves, that's a problem because now, it's kind of the blind leading the blind. So we do our own work first. We learn how to regulate our own emotions as adults. Now we have a child going through an experience. They don't know necessarily. These are big things for them, right? It might not be big for us, but it's big for them. We get to help them experience what it's like to regulate their emotions by co-regulating with them. Sometimes it's just a big hug, being there for them, whatever it means for that child, helping them now get out of that in experience and then teaching them after that how to get through that on their own, helping them understand that maybe some of that behavior, if they're, throwing things or whatever, isn't ideal or optimal or acceptable. And then that's the opportunity to teach afterwards, right? After you've helped them get out of it, you've got that rapport, you've got that connection, you've got that trust built up with them. Now you can start to talk about like, hey, how do you think that made the other person feel? But yeah, I think it's a super important piece is just being able, well, not just validating someone else's experience, but then also being able to validate our own, right? Like, oh, like what we were saying,
Hmm.
naming it. Like yeah, I'm going through something right now. Like I'm feeling something right now. What is that? Oh, I feel like this. Just yeah, hugely, hugely important work, I believe.
Yeah. So let me throw a curveball at you with that. How do you? Because here, I'll give you a scenario. When we think about our kids going through stuff, I think there's definitely there's a time and place for. Okay, let me back up. I'll give some context. We seem to live in a time now where it's while it's okay to validate our feelings and kind of really kind of into the thing about talking about our emotions,
Hmm.
but we also have seem to there's a portion of our culture that's kind of swung the pendulum a little bit too far, whereas we think like we are all like we're all kind of driven by our emotions, and
Mm,
whatever we're going through, whatever the experience you're having, well, that's your experience and that's okay.
hmm.
Yet, so let's say, like, I'll give you an example. Somebody, I remember hearing about this. Like, if you're on an airplane, and a full airplane, and your kid is having a complete meltdown. This guy tells a story about this kid is having this complete meltdown on an airplane. It's disrupting everybody. And so when someone confronts the parents, like, dude, your kid is having, like, take care of your kid. And
Hmm.
the parents are like, well, the kid's having, he's having a moment. He's just having his own experience. It's like, okay, so like, how do you match that
Hmm.
with this idea that, yeah, like sometimes what you're feeling, like we were at the park yesterday, we're at the park, and my daughter, my 4-year-old, she wants to take like a running thing up to kick the ball. So she backs up 30 feet and she sprints, as a 4-year-old, like toddle sprints to the ball. As she's about to kick the ball, she misses the ball, slips and falls on her butt, and all of a sudden, right then, she's like, so she's hysterical, she's crying,
Fierce.
and all she wants to do is she wants to go home. Just, I want to go home. I want to go home. I want to go home. And I remember in that moment thinking, okay, but she's going to be scared to do this thing. So I got her to actually kick the ball again.
Yeah.
She calmed down a little bit. I distracted her a little bit because I knew what she was feeling was not like a ton of physical pain. She was just really scared because she didn't know what she was feeling. So we regulated it a little bit, and then said, let's kick a ball. I want you to kick again. So then she wasn't scared to actually do it again. It was like, okay, it's okay. I can do this thing. And so I think there's times when there's the like get up and walk it off type of attitude is necessary, and then there's other times. So it's like when you really want to like just really be in the moment, be in with emotion, understand the emotion. So like how do you navigate those two
Sure.
things?
Yeah, that's a dance. So those are two. So those are some really good examples, and I think there's two separate things there, at least I think to talk about. One, so on the plane, just letting a kid full on have a tantrum, for an extended period of time, it doesn't sound like that's helping them regulate their emotions. That's just letting them, do whatever they want. I'm not suggesting that. I think we've talked about this before. Maybe it was with Thomas around, there's freedom to, there's empowering our kids to be the leaders of their own lives. And then there's
Mm-hmm.
also the need for some healthy boundaries when, maybe they haven't experienced something that they don't know necessarily something, right? Like, I'm not going to let my super young or jump off the 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 shed because they think they can fly. Like there's safety that we need as adults to be able to discern and use good judgment and instill some healthy boundaries and help our kids understand what we're doing and why we're doing it. And I think I've shared a really helpful sort of empowerment framework that's been good for me too. It's look, if they really want to do something, I do and you watch, I do and you help, now you can do and I'll help, and now you do it and I watch. I think that's a really
Mm.
helpful framework for anything new that a kid really wants to do, but you don't feel is safe, and you have some experience around how to guide them through that. So I think safety, healthy boundaries, absolutely necessary. I think in that example on the plane, I don't didn't doesn't sound like the parents doing a very good job of helping that child regulate and teaching them how to regulate and how to process that whatever their experience in an efficient, timely manner. Like the parent just by letting them, the parents not there with them. Sometimes the child needs something. They might need a hug. They might need some attention. Like typically it's a cry for attention. Sometimes they need to be heard. Something, so there's definitely a parenting piece there for sure. I wouldn't let it just go on and just say this is my kid. They get to have this total experience. So yeah, I would suggest there's an opportunity there to help the child learn how to regulate. And again, as parents, we need to model that. As parents, we need to sometimes go through it with them, so they can experiencing it. They can experience it in their body themselves. Separately with your daughter, yeah, I've been there too, right? With my son doing, some pretty dangerous sports, downhill mountain biking and freestyle skiing. Even just attempting something that you don't get right the first time, that whole story you can make around failure, and not attempt it again. And so, what comes up for me is a few things. One is what they say might not necessarily be what they want to do, like is what you're saying, right? She might say right in that moment, I want to go home. I want to get out of here. At first, though, it's just helping her calm down, and if it means removing her from just the situation, like just taking taking off the playground, going somewhere quiet where she might not feel as embarrassed. I know, having gone through that, like sometimes just getting out of that situation temporarily, helping them regulate if they need help, teaching them how to do it themselves. And then from that place, having a conversation around, you want to try it again? Let me, come with you. How to empower them to get back on the field can be super helpful. And, so that it requires discernment, right? Because sometimes that's the situation. Sometimes it's not. Like I've had one of my kids have a really awful fall, and rather than them needing to get out right back out there and show themselves that they can do it, they did take some time to come back and be coached to, work through the fear. And that was totally real. And they got to a place where they, it's not a story anymore. So I just think that's our job, right? Is to figure out how to discern those moments of when it's time to, pull up her socks, get back on the field. And we'll figure out that grit, that perseverance. Like I think of that dad before. I think grit is sometimes super important. I just think the piece around it is to not pretend like it's not happening. Like I don't think it's an example to be like that duck, right? So everything's good on the surface, but meanwhile under the water you're treading like crazy. I just don't think that's a healthy lesson to project anyone, even yourself. Because what is that teaching?
Yeah.
So yeah, that's a lot, but I really appreciate those examples. What do you think?
Yeah, I remember it reminds me of, I was at a retreat where we were doing these high ropes courses, where there's one of the exercises where we had to climb up this pole, like a big telephone pole. It's probably 30 feet up in the air. And once we climb to the top, we get up, we stand on the pole and then jump out to grab this bar, and we were all harnessed up and everything. And there was one woman that was there that she got up to like the first rung on the pole, and she just clung to the pole. She's like, I'm too scared. And the guy that was in charge said, can you just take one more step? And she's like, okay, I'll take one more step. And she grabbed it again, and he's like, what are you feeling? She's like, I'm just so scared. And he said something that I will always kind of hear back in my mind all the time. He said, can you be scared and do it anyway? Can you be scared and take one more step? And she did. And every step, she just grabbed the thing. And it probably took her 10 minutes to get up this pole. But within that time span, every time she was so scared, yet she did it anyway. And so it's the things that we teach ourselves, the things that we teach our kids is like, can you feel the feelings of being uncomfortable and still move through life? Right.
I
think that's
that's a great. Oh, go ahead.
No, I think it's a powerful thing, because I remember it reminds me too. When I was 16, another lesson my mom taught me on this very subject. I got my driver's license. It was like the thing that I was the most excited about. I've been so excited for 5 years, since I was 11 years old. I wanted to get my driver's license. I just want to drive. I love driving. I still do. I just love driving. I love taking road trips. I love carting my kids around I love being the Uber. That'd be in another life. I'm like the master Uber driver. So I love it. And I got my license. Yeah, so I got my license, and the first thing I wanted to do was like, okay, I'm going to take over all the driving responsibilities. I had three siblings. I'm like, okay, we got to get everyone to sports after school and on the weekends. I want to do all the driving. So my sister went to volleyball practice. I drove her there, drove back. I went to go pick her up. Now, this is in January in Winnipeg, so there's snow and ice and everything everywhere. I'm driving back. This is my second day of having my driver's license, and we pull up on the road, and all of a sudden, this car in front of us slams on the brakes. I slam on the brakes behind him, but we were on, I guess, a patch of ice. So like I just careened right into this car. Day two, I got into this big car accident. I rear-ended some guy. Turns out the guy was drunk, and so I hit a guy that was driving drunk. But so I got into this accident. I'm with my little sister. I was like, I felt so traumatized, and I was like so scared. I didn't sleep for a couple of days. I was just, the whole thing was just like awful. I thought I'd never drive again. And the day after I got into that accident, maybe it was 2 days after I got into that accident, my mom said, okay, we're going to go driving again. And I'm like, I do not want to go drive. I'm not driving anymore. And she's like, no, you're driving again. You have to do it. And she just forced me to do it. I was so scared. I remember sitting in the car. But she didn't say it in those words, but it was essentially, yeah, can you be so scared of doing this thing, but then just try it anyway? And I remember starting to drive like so slow, like I wouldn't even put my foot on the gas. And we drove down the road, and then after a while, I was like, oh, okay, this is okay. And then I got to where I could drive again. And I remember thinking, like, that was such a pivotal moment for me. And I think about that so often when there's some time where I want to quit at something, or I think my kid wants to quit at something. It's like, okay, no, there's power in just being so afraid, but pushing through it. And you're right, like that discernment is, I think, why we're the parent and they're the kid.
Yeah, we've got
And I wish
time on this planet is going for us, right? We've in theory had more chances to experience these things, experience these emotions, have language around it. You know, we have other people that we can talk to that have experiences that we can combine. Like that's what we have, right? Is one of our biggest assets to provide them is this combined time and experience.
Yeah, and I think for me too, the discernment of having a group like you, people like you in my life, when I'm in those moments where I don't want to do it, where I'm too scared and I feel like I'm going to quit or I'm going to just stop. And then there's those moments, yeah, when I lean into you guys. So you guys become, you become my parent in that,
Well,
to say like,
yeah,
we do it for each other.
yeah, you sent me a great video on just how guys can do that for each other too, right? To just provide that genuine support. Sometimes it just we do this in our being man, group meetings, right? I made a post recently of, we've met every week for almost 9 years. And, we'll share these things. The start of the meeting is what we're grateful for right now and what we're integrating, so there's largely going to be something that someone in the group's going through that's big, and they might need some help, and we'll even have language around, what would you like? You want to just vent? You want to just get it out and that's it? Do you want some perspectives? Do you want some solutions? So that, because sometimes if we all of a sudden jump in and are offering solutions, but the other person's not even ready to hear them, they're just like, look, I just need to get this off my chest. I don't even need anything. I'm good. I just, needed to just share this. But yeah, I think being able to do that for each other, friends, guys, whoever it is, to be able to provide that space is, for me, has been one of the best things I've ever done in my life, is to have these amazing guys like you, guys in the group I meet with every week. I mean, just invaluable. I mean, I've gone to all these conferences, and Tony, and I know you have too, and to have that every week, and our daily check-in, like every morning, to text them and get their texts about how we're going to show up today is like, I don't know. You start telling people, and they're like, wait, what? Every single day you guys connect with each other? It's massively valuable. And just back to your piece there around feeling the emotions, feeling the fear, and doing it anyways. That, I don't know what Disney movie that's in, but that's like courage. What I'm like, because it's another example of invalidating our emotions, right? This whole no fear brand. I think that does also a disservice. If someone's sitting there like legit feeling fear, but we're told to not feel any fear, to just, you should no fear, just do it. Again, that's confusing. But I am scared. Like my body's telling me that this is dangerous. Like that's a real important thing to listen to. Like I go downhill mountain biking with my son, and it's really important for me if I'm at the top of a rock and I've never done this before to be like, yeah, I'm pretty scared about this. Maybe this isn't a good idea right now. I got a lot of responsibilities. That's a sport I've backed off from because I have had some accidents because I pushed through stuff that maybe I shouldn't have. So
Mm.
again, it's an interesting dance and discernment around like, yes, there's actually fear here. Is it rational fear? Or is it irrational fear, right? Like, is there a legit a bear walking in front of me right now? Or is it just this whole story I'm making up too? I think that's also super important to understand. Is this rational or irrational fear? Because then that's a different story, right? Is my body actually giving me a survival instinct that this cliff is steep or this animal is dangerous? Or is this my mind making up stuff that probably is not even going to happen that I'm scared about?
Yeah. Yeah. As you're talking about, I'm just thinking about we're how many there's billions of people on this planet. We're all in our own minds having these same conversations. All of this stuff is happening to everybody, and yet we walk around and try to act like it's not happening.
Right.
Like it's
Right. Like
okay. I'm
I'm
okay.
good. I got it.
I'm good. Yeah, it's all
How are you?
good.
I'm fine. I'm fine. That F word, that's one of those dirty words. We joke about it sometimes in our house. Fine. Sure. I mean, some of the other dirty words from that course was, oh, sure, I'll try. Like it's from Star Wars, right? Do or do not. There is no try. Like if I say to someone, well, try and sit down, try and stand up. Okay. It's more empowering languages. I will or I won't. I'm going to. I am, or I'm not. Like making a decision to me feels a lot more empowering than, well, I'll try.
Yeah.
Should.
Yeah.
The word should. I should go to the gym. Oh, I should do this thing. That's another one of those dirty words. For a while there, we had a jar as a fun thing as a family where if anyone said a dirty word, we put some money in the jar just to notice it, to name it, to be like, oh yeah, could I have said I am going to do this or I'm not going to do this? Like making a choice, making a decision. What do I really want here?
Mm.
So, yeah.
Yeah, I think that's so cool. I think it's to do that as kids is so powerful too. Like to grow up with this idea that life is our choice, that everything is our choice, that the words that come out of like everything is just as simple as the words that come out of our mouth. We live in a culture where there's all these everything is just kind of you have this throwaway language. We think that somehow we've evolved past this idea that what we say doesn't matter. And so we get online and we can spew hate to people and think, oh, it doesn't matter. It's like it's just these words that I'm saying, and yet there's weight to what we say because what we tell ourselves is the things that we believe, and the things that we believe are the things that we act on, and the things we act on creates our reality. And it seems so simple, and almost it's like it's so simple it offends the mind to think that if I only change the words that come out of my mouth, I can change my life. Like, no, it can't be that simple. It can't be that simple.
Sure.
But,
Right.
but it's so true. It's so
I mean,
true.
wasn't that the foundation of Tony Robbins' work, neurolinguistic programming? It's the language we program ourselves with. I mean, that's the
Yeah.
foundation of his work, right? NLP.
Yeah, and I think the way that he's taken it, like he talks about how it's NA, so NAC, so neuroassociative conditioning. So the idea of condition, that we can condition, just like we condition our muscle with everything that we lift and everything that we do, we condition ourselves into a way of being. And because, yeah, our habits are our life. And that's it. It's what we do every single moment of every single day. And what a beautiful thing, like you shared, like being able to just step back from whatever's happening, to be able to just have a name. Like how simple is that? Yet how powerful is that? Just to have a name for what I'm feeling. I could just, give it a thing. Oh, then it just doesn't have as much power all of a sudden. It's
Right.
just this thing that I can hold all of a sudden. It's not this thing that is elusive and
Confusing.
scary and confusing. Yeah, it's just this thing. Okay.
Giving it language, giving it a word. Yeah, and to tie a few more things that we talked about. One is just as dads, there's a lot that we can we can choose to put on our shoulders, right? Like we talked about, having our own business, getting clients, hiring staff, delivering the work. I mean, that can be a lot, And then we've got, you've got two, I've got three kids, very busy schedules, things that they love that we want to support. We've got our own health to take care of. We got wives that we take care of, and not take care of, but we support, want to be with, want to co-create this life together with. We got our friends, so that's a lot, And I think, just to maybe tie it all back together, some things that you said there too is, it just starts with those little steps. Like I've realized how powerful it is for these little steps, these little habits, these little words. It seems really simple. It's not easy. It's taken me a long time to start to put some of the stuff in a very consistent way. It's why I share these videos every day of me doing push-ups. I don't need people to see me doing push-ups. I'm sharing that and doing it with my kids to show how one simple practice every day makes me feel great, and hopefully it can inspire others, which it has. There's some moms at the kids' school that are doing them now, and they're noticing like, oh, I got, my arms are looking really good. And now the mom knows she's doing them, not who I thought would do them, but it feels great to me that others are now realizing the benefits of doing this one thing every day. And I'm realizing it. Like I put on this shirt that I had made, and it was a lot bigger on me, like a month and a half ago, even. Like these little things, and it feels good, like that it's a little tighter, and my muscles are feeling stronger as guys, like, and sometimes that strength is necessary, like I'm picking up kids or pulling stuff into the school the other day. That there's a load of stuff that needed to put in the school. It's incredible to experience and to share an example of little things every day, those little words, these little actions, how the compounding effect turns out over time. Because in the beginning, it doesn't feel like much. Like I've been doing them since the beginning of this year, and it didn't seem like much. Now, you start to layer on some other things. We were doing this dad bod boot camp with this guy Ed, who's amazing, and he's adding some resistance training on top of this. And I'm like, okay, well, that's next level. My videos, I've got my daughter on my back, so now I've got extra weight. Also with those dad videos you shared, like dads figuring out how to have fun with their kids and get in shape. That's pretty cool too, right? Those videos of the guy on the treadmill with his kid. I used to carry my kids a ton when they were little because it's kind of like rucking. I'm putting them on my back. I'm going for hikes. I'm getting an extra workout, and I'm getting that connection with them. That to me is a win-win. I shared a video last night of me. It's kind of a joking one, but of me working out with my daughter. She loves this. She calls it the dad workout. I'm using her as weights, and I'm doing bicep curls and tricep extensions. I just think there's many ways that we can combine things so that it's actually easier to get the things. It can feel like a lot if we try and do them all separately.
Yeah.
If we can combine them, like working out with our kids and having fun, now we're getting this connection time. We're showing them how we show up. We're getting healthy. They're getting healthy. They're getting example. We're doing it with other dads. I mean, to me, that's a home run.
Yeah. So speaking of home runs, are you a fan of baseball?
I played it as a kid. My daughter's playing it right now. Yeah. I think she loves it.
I think it's a pretty boring sport to watch. It's fun to play. Boring to watch. I feel one thing that's interesting with that, we think about in the major leagues, the people like these baseball players. I didn't know until over the last 10 years how big of a business Major League Baseball is. These people are making hundreds of millions of dollars in their things, right? But what's really cool is when you look at the highest paid baseball players, the highest paid professional baseball players, we think about potentially maybe it's the guy with the most home runs, with like the most grand slams. It's not. The people who are paid the most as Major League Baseball players are the ones that have the highest, what is it called?
On-base percentage?
On-base percentage, yeah. So RBI, whatever the thing is.
They're getting
so meaning the amount of times that they can get onto first base.
Okay.
That's the thing. It's not about the home runs. It's about how many times you can do the one little thing, which is to get to the first base. Those people, the ones that most consistently get to first base, are the ones that are paid the highest. It's the little things. It's not about, and we often think it's all about, it's like this big splash. It's like the big thing. We want to do all of the big things, and that's really what counts. But what you're saying is so true. It's the little steps. Can I be consistent with this one little step? because that one little step leads to the next step, which leads to the next step. And now after a while, you're the highest paid player in the game.
Yeah. If you look at the chart of compounding, you know, Einstein said this, I think the compounding is one of the, you know, whatever, the wonders of the world. Warren Buffett's a huge fan of compounding. If you see the math of what happens at the beginning, it's very slow. You don't see the impact if you're investing of this compounding effect. But over time, you know, Brian Johnson's got that whole 1% a day, you know, like plus ones. He shares on YouTube. He reads a ton of books. He shares a lot of great content. You know, just that one thing every day. Atomic Habits, another great book about how to build that one thing and understanding the psychology of just doing that one thing and how to do it in a sustainable way. A huge book I recommend. You know, there's so many things layered on this, right? The impeccability of your word. I said I'm going to do this to myself, for myself. Am I going to keep my own word first and foremost? Because if I can't even keep my word to myself, then what chance do I have keeping it to others? There's 4 agreements. You know, that was the impeccability of your word. How you do anything is how you do everything. Again, if you're sloppy on just this one simple thing that you said you were going to do for yourself and also to inspire others, that's a slippery slope. If you can't do that and you're not committed to do that, then what does that mean about other things in your life? It's a fascinating, and again, that's what our group of men was built on, was commitment, growth, support, love, commitment, like commitment to these things that matter. Is a superpower. It's a muscle though too, right? It just requires a workout, and at the beginning it's sometimes hard. I miss some, and I'm gonna miss some once in a while too. But the more I do it, the stronger I get. Not just physically, right? Mentally toughness, being able to do it for others. I'll just say one more thing because I think we're getting close to time here. But you had said this before too, is that mindset of doing it for others. You know, when maybe you're feeling a little off. I think when we get too focused on us. Oh, poor me, or oh, this is really hard. Like you had said too, when you're focused on contribution, when you're focused on service, when you're focused on others, you start to, all these thoughts and inner dialogues start to dissolve, and you're like, oh, this isn't about me. This is about how can I show up for these other people, my wife, my kids, my employees, team members, friends. It starts to. It's amazing. Right? Because showing up for them is instead of trying to fill it myself by focusing on myself, right? It's this interesting, you know, loop in that respect. As long as it's not doing it in a way that's doing it with true love and support and service, it's interesting how that external service starts to fill this internal bucket as well. In my opinion.
Yeah, I think we're also like teaching our kids too. It's like this weird dichotomy that like our kids, like my kids to me, they're the most important thing in the entire world, and they're perfect just the way that they are. Yet, they're not that special. In that they're no different than anybody else. Everybody's just as special. So it's like if everybody's special, then nobody's special. So walking around thinking that I'm God's gift to life. And that everything is about me. Well, that doesn't serve us,
right?
So there's something about what's special about me is what I give to the world. What's special about me is my gifts inside, and not only keeping those gifts inside, but sharing. It's the thing that I have and the thing that I share. It's both of those things.
Yeah. That's a slippery slope. If kids develop this mentality that they're somehow special, like that they're better than others. Do you know what I mean? That can not go well if they develop that mindset. Because you're right, we're all humans, we're all equal. I'm going to give different priorities to people in my life based on obviously my family and people I love and care about that I want to spend a lot of time with. But at the end of the day, we're all humans having this experience on this planet.
Yeah, and also just the pressure. You can imagine the pressure on a kid if they're told you are the most special thing to life and you're perfect and everything. Well, what happens when they mess up? What happens when they make a mistake? Yeah. Do they think so then the pressure on them, I can imagine the pressure on these kids, like, oh my gosh. But once all of a sudden that pressure's taken off, there was an episode of Bluey that we watched the other day. The show, these little Australian dogs, cartoon dogs, and the little 5-year-old was told like, oh, you're special, like you're special, special, special. This little special thing about you. But she got paralyzed in the fear of, oh, like, but what if I make a mistake? But then she was told, you're not special. It's not like you're not more special than anybody else. And then she was like, oh, great, I'm not special anymore. And so everybody cheered, yay, I'm not special. Yeah, because you're not any different than anybody else. You are unique in your own way. You have your own gifts, your own story, your own experience, which is beautiful. But you also are in harmony with others. You're no different and no better or worse than anybody. And I think there's a freedom in that once we can teach kids that, once we teach ourselves that, like, it's okay. We're all just trying to figure this thing out.
Yeah, there's some really good language in there, right? That needs some, carefulness with, right? Around like, yeah, there is a specialness, right? There is a uniqueness. Like, obviously, there's the only you, and you have unique gifts and superpowers that you get to bring to others that I don't have, right? And so there is a uniqueness about you. There is a specialness about you. Same with me. I think you don't want to, sort of water everything down where we're all average and we don't actually have these gifts. And at the same time, you don't want to think about yourself or have your kids think that somehow they're better than, that somehow they're more special than anyone else. But more so, like, it's kind of like the Avengers, right? Like, where everyone's got a superpower and they're together as a team and no one's better than the other one. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I love it.
Yeah. It's a fascinating journey, for ultimate personal growth. As you said, it's marriage, because again, that's something that you take on that you typically wouldn't have done before. So that's a huge thing to just, to live with someone and to share, your life with, and to share finances with, and share business with, and share kids with. So that if someone signed up for that, it's a huge personal growth opportunity, because you're going to get a lot of your stuff thrown back at you. Parenting, now you got your kids that are going to grow up to throw a lot of your stuff back at you. And they're going to challenge you, and you're going to be tired, and there's all kinds of ways that they're going to test you. So there's all kinds of personal growth. And then, if you choose to start your own business, and amongst all of that, I mean, that's what do you call it? The trifecta of like
trifecta of insanity.
You've signed up for some serious growth. If you're willing to see it all as sometimes a mirror, as a lesson, as education. Do you know what I mean? Like, if you're coming into that though, like, oh no, I got this all figured out, I know it's got to be this way, that's when I think you could go insane. Is like, why isn't everything, like, back to the very first thing, right? Why isn't the external world happening exactly as I want it? My marriage is supposed to be like this. That's what I was told in all these movies. My business is supposed to be like this. I saw this all on Instagram about I should just be blowing it up passively. My kids should be like this. This is how I see it in all these, Instagram posts from other parents. If you've got a fixed ideal about how it's all supposed to go, yeah, I think that could create insanity for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. Well said.
The last thing I wanted to add is just this notion of humbleness. I think that's sort of the flip side of that feeling like you're better than, and specialness is like true humbleness. I mean, that's been a lot of what's coming out for me as there's a project I'm doing with the Japanese Canadian Museum, and we're going into our ancestors and their stories, and there's just like this incredible humbleness around, like, yeah, they had amazing gifts, they were being of service to others, they were doing some amazing things, and I guess back then there wasn't social media. They didn't need to go and tell everybody about everything and over exaggerate it, right? It was just like they just did it, and they did it in the service of others, and whether they knew it or not, they had these unique gifts and superpowers. But I don't, nowhere along the way did it ever come across as, oh, we're better than, we're special, you're not, So I think humbleness is a really important thing in all this too.
Absolutely.
Which, I think you and I have the humble gene.
Ryan, I am the most humble person you know.
Yeah, and humor is a good, laughter is good medicine. So yeah, that's a lot. But man, it's fun, isn't it? Like, I wouldn't trade this for anything.
No. Yeah. When things get hard, I will often turn to my wife and we'll kind of joke like, well, this is the life we chose.
Yeah, this is what we signed
So
up for.
let's go.
Right. Cool, brother. Well, again, congrats on your conversation this morning before our call. Thank you for being awesome and setting up all the behind the scenes stuff to make all this work. Thank you for being an amazing friend and sharing me with stuff that just makes me feel really good about myself. And yeah, man, I look forward to more of doing this together.
Yeah, likewise, man. All right.
Well, and thanks to I forget that there are hopefully some other people that are hearing this.
Yeah.
Thank you for
Thanks for coming.
thank you
Thanks for
anyone
coming
else.
along the journey with us.
Yeah,
We're
thanks
all
for
in
being
this
here,
together.
here. Let us know if this resonates. Let us know if it doesn't. If you're still here, maybe it does. Let us know though. And thanks. Have an awesome day.
All right.
Peace out.